something is, so I'm going to put this down here so there's no interference. Okay, if you're ready for viewer, okay, I think we're ready. 1, 2. All right, and we're recording here. Ernie, you're going to need to, I'm going to put an intro in front of this, so don't start it here, obviously. Ernie's my guy. Guy that does everything. I wish is with me because I have to set this shit up and I don't know how to do it.
There's no such thing as Ernie, is there?
There is no Ernie, it's me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wodcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wodcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wodcast podcast. Can I get it out? I can get it out. I got it out. I'm Eddie Eft. I am here at the Dalai Lama's. I'm sitting across from a man right now who is wearing Birkenstocks and a robe, basically.
And socks.
Yeah, Birkenstocks, socks, and a blanket, like he just...
Not just any blanket.
And a shaved head, just like he came...
A
Staples blanket.
Like they do. Sorry.
A Staples blanket, like he just came down from the mountain, that he's been up with the rest...
To speak to the peasants.
Yes, with the rest of the monks. Learning a vow of silence or something like that. I don't know what he's doing. Anyways, that person you guys might know as the first winner of the CrossFit Games. And that's James Fitzgerald, head of the Dalai Lama of OPEX.
Yes.
OPEX,
founder.
Which used to be...
Founder is the title.
Founder. That's Founder, like the movie, The Founder.
Yeah.
It is a cult you're running here. You're just trying to start one
Duplicate
cult.
like everyone else.
You left one cult and you started another. You're like the Branch Davidians that started their own branch.
Yeah, you got to taste it in order to know how to do it.
I went to Waco, Texas to see the Branch Davidians place, and it's all burnt down,
Mm-hmm.
but they have a new little church, like a tiny one on the property, and they're like, come on in. And my wife's like, don't you dare go in there. And I'm like, we're going. And it's a branch of the Branch Davidians. But I don't know if you've ever seen the special on it. There was like
I've seen 2 documentaries. Yeah.
It's pretty interesing. There was a lot of crystal meth going on there.
Yeah.
Wasn't so much Jesus. It was more meth.
Yeah. Shows the power of belief, though.
Yeah. So if you're listening to the Wodcast podcast right now, you can always see it on YouTube. If you go to our Patreon page, it's a $3 donation a month, and you get to see all the videos. Then they're private videos on YouTube. This is going to be an interesting one because James is sitting in a blanket wearing sandals.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I am talking to a monk right now. He's also got, like, his backdrop is the thousands of books that he has read about, reference books about physiology and strength and conditioning and nutrition. And it's one of those guys where I'm not going to try to spout any knowledge at all because your books are basically going, I know more than you.
I propose to know more.
Well,
It's a front.
I think that's pretty much, isn't that how you get, I've read some of these.
Yeah.
You got some amazing books. You posted one the other day on your Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
That was Everybody's
Lies. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I need to read that book.
Yeah.
What's it, the gist of it?
This former Google engineer,
Mm-hmm.
or he spent 5 or 6 years there, just basically felt a personal desire to let everyone know, as this social media move is creating this lack of perception between what is reality and what is fantasy for people's lives and how everything is happening in culture. He wanted to provide real information on some uncovered truths of what people were searching for.
Oh, wow.
And what they search for is vastly different
It's
than
all
what we believe.
It's all transgender porn.
There's a lot of porn conversation in there.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Well, I say that because a friend of mine worked as a porn editor for years.
Mm-hmm.
He's a stand-up comedian named Yoshi, and he said that it's like the second most purchased kind of pornography.
Yeah.
He's like, so there's such a there's this weird world where the whole public is against it and looks down upon transgenders and everything. He's like, meanwhile everybody's
wants to see it. Yeah. Without uncovering what's inside there, it's he discusses some really uncomfortable areas of the human psyche,
mm-hmm.
and it's just fascinating because we have stories in our own heads, and then how you and I talk, for
Mm-hmm.
example, we'll never develop a relationship even on this deep enough,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, to ever uncover some of our own truths that we would search for on Google.
Right. Right. Interesting.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So the stuff you'll search for on Google, now that is different today, because now that people are more woke to privacy issues
Sure,
and what they can
sure.
and cannot, who's looking, that may change. But he got I called it a sweet spot. He picked a sweet spot in time where from 2011 to 2016, no one really knew how much those
Right.
were watching.
Right.
So the searches, dude, I'm telling you, are just
Well, we on my other show,
next level.
the Bingle Show, the comedy show, we play a game called Can I Look at Your Google Searches? And we ask the guest if we can look at their Google search, because I've always said, you know, whenever I hear politicians say we shouldn't do this, this is wrong or this, I'm like, can we go through your cache right now?
Yeah.
I'd love to see what you're searching,
Yeah.
because I have a feeling you're a hypocrite and you're full of shit.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's everything. That's almost everything today,
Yeah.
though, right? In order to figure out truth, like you have to come into my office,
right.
right? We have to shake hands. We have to you have to, if you were to spend more time with me, you'd go home with me and spend time with my family. You'd see my kids. You'd see my behaviors and stuff. And that stuff it's not unfolded anymore.
Right.
Like you know what I'm saying? There's so many personalities out there. You could be an example where you could just be on a YouTube link and be humorous. But until I see you in person and feel you in a live crowd,
Sure.
I really don't know you.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know what I'm saying? So
Pod-
it's just so common today.
Podcasting
we don't
is
know who
pod-
that person is.
Podcasting is weird though, because it peels off most of the layers.
Yeah.
Most. There's still I still have some layers that
I guess it's an in between.
because I have when I first started show business, I said, hey, I don't want to give up my private life at all. I'm going to be pretty much a character on stage. That's it. That's all you get. When I'm off stage, I'm me. And then the character started blending with the person, and then podcasting came around, and it was the more you expose yourself, the more popular you'll get, the more fans you'll get, the more money you'll make, the more success you'll have. And I was very against it in the beginning. I didn't want people to know where I lived. I didn't want them to know my wife's name. And then more and more, it just kept breaking down, and it kept breaking down to the point where I was like, I got nothing left to hide.
Yeah.
I have told them everything,
Yeah.
and to the point where I'm worried about my digital footprint,
Yeah.
because I have a daughter now,
Yeah.
and my daughter's going to grow up and be like,
Yeah.
my dad did this,
Yeah.
and this, and this, and she has access to stuff that you used to be able to hide, and
Yeah.
you used to be able to kind of, you
Yeah.
had your, I don't have a private life anymore.
Yeah. I think we're getting older though too.
Yeah.
And we're starting to care less about everything else.
Yeah.
I think secondly, there's probably a fundamental principle in human nature of vulnerability too, that people don't really get to feel you or know you unless you're really vulnerable, because that's what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
Right? You're getting more vulnerable, or
Sure.
being more open.
Sure.
Which I think that's a place where people can see your wounds and see,
Mhm.
the real aspect of
Mhm.
the human aspect.
Mhm.
And I think that's what attracts a lot of people to it.
Right.
Secondly, but it has to come from the right intent. So just to be more vulnerable, to get more popular,
Right.
is the incorrect intent.
I would
So that's
agree
the
with
fine
that.
line that you and I have to make because you said children,
Yeah.
right? There's a fine line and responsibility that you have to make on how vulnerable you are.
Right.
And to our previous point, what that opens up to privacy, and
Right,
Big
right,
Brother,
right.
et cetera.
Right. And I agree with that. And the responsibility part of it, like you said, as we get older, things become less important.
Yeah.
That becomes my main. I never thought I'd be that guy.
Yeah, for
but,
sure.
But my main priority is my family, my child, so as the doors that opened before are closing now,
Yeah.
and I'm going, I wish I hadn't have opened up like that, or I'd like to separate these two things, but it's weird, and that's what I like about comedy is, and I hate to use Bill Cosby as an example because now he's, blacklisted, but Cosby, what I liked about his comedy was he was always funny where he was in his life. When he was single and he was talking about dating, it was funny. it's so hard to use him as an example because we're thinking about
Well, today it's even
a rapist,
a better option.
But he was able to be funny about marriage, about childbirth, about having children, about being a father in every place of his life. So that's what's kind of interesting about our lives, that maybe musicians don't get. You're a rock star and they want you to be a rock star. Mm-hmm. Whereas a comedian, it's like, well, okay, let's hear this part of your life now. And let's hear this part. Louis C.K. they just went after really badly this week because he did an hour and they said he made jokes about Parkland and there's some jokes about non-binary people. But I listened
He's
to
really trying to get back quick, huh?
And I listened to his set of the hour and I thought it was hilarious.
Okay.
And I thought he was. Here's the thing, a comedian just said he's never ever seen a funny comedian that believes in censorship. Yeah. So anyone that believes in censorship doesn't understand art, and in order to get a joke, sometimes to make it funny, we have to do it where it's in its infancy, it's not funny. Yeah. Like that Parkland joke might be horrible right now, or you might find it offensive, whereas a year from now when it's on a special, you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe we laughed at that. It's so funny, and he made such a good point. Yeah. But it has to go through.
But there's timing. My point was there's timing. Yeah. Right? Like you do have intention. Yeah. So your intention should be a little soft for a year. Yeah. Yeah. And then come back. You know what I'm saying? Believe me, I'm all on that side of. Jordan Peterson describes it in a different way, but I don't know the way he describes comedians, but I think they're the only savior in between connecting what we don't want to hear or say to what we really need to hear and say. Yeah. Right. So, and I think comedians were that only voice, and now we're starting to, unfortunately, as a culture, look at any forms of speech or communication or conversation as being some areas that we can't touch. And comedians were always open to us having a discussion around some of those truths that are now, unfortunately, not as accepted. It's not, his point is an N equals 1. I think it's just the timing issue.
It's not accepted, but there will always be a place. And it's funny, comedy clubs started in basements, in dark little places where they were almost like speakeasies, where it was, hey, I know this place where we can go hear truth. Yeah. Where we can go down there if you're ready to hear it and you want to hear it. What happened was comedy exploded to the masses, which is happening globally, and then it's leaving it more open for criticism, where people are going, I don't like this, and everybody has a voice. But there will always be that place. I mean, Louis, he's hiding practically in these little places. It's not like he's out there going, hey, I'm trying to make money. Yeah. He's going, I'm working out material in these little dark places, and people are coming to see him, and then they're recording them, posting it up for the masses to hear. Yeah. And he's not out there for financial reasons right now. He's doing what he does. Yeah. And
but don't you see little signs of things that are happening in terms of repressing that conversation that could be some insight into it being a little bit more of a bigger issue long term? So we were just talking about Bill Burr. So he has a number of European dates, right? Right. And so let's just say that someone causes a kerfuffle on the 13th out of the 15th date that he has. Right. Don't you see that as possibly being a problem more so than being this underground conversation, and now it's so public, right? Yeah. But people don't want to necessarily hear it, and I think there is a strong. It's a minority, but there's a stronger minority that want to quiet that conversation.
Yeah, and that minority, it's fine. I saw David Axelrod yesterday commenting on Louis, and he said those jokes were really tasteless, and I agree. But he goes, I don't believe in any kind of censorship, and as a society, we shouldn't be trying to censor. What you do is we live in a free market. You don't pay to see him. You if there are people that want to see that, but this whole concept of like, let's shut it down is really creepy.
Oh, it is, but that's my point. Yeah. I think that's growing, unfortunately, to the powers that be of who controls that information.
It's funny.
And company that you were just speaking about that you're working with, Patreon, as being one of them.
Oh yeah, that's true. Right? With Jordan Peterson.
Those are little examples where, like, who decides what is...
Well, it is an open market where I was reading about that with what's going on with Jordan and Dave Rubin and all those guys, and I thought, oh, well, build your new site, build your new, and I'll jump ship. I'll go with the one that believes in freedom of speech and the one that's not censoring. Right now, it's I've got too many other things on my plate, but it's one of those things where the free market will decide, and I think people are going to be surprised when Louis does eventually tour,
Mm-hmm.
how massive the tour is
Yeah.
going to be.
Yeah.
Because if you look on his YouTube comments or
Yeah.
when people are posting it, 95% of them are pro comedy, pro free speech, and 5% are this is disgusting, this man should be stopped. And it's crazy. We're going. Everybody listening right now, it is. I love these kind of conversations, and it's where we blend the whole idea of fitness and what's going on in the
And why
fitness
we do
world.
what we do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we had a long discussion about this last night, and I was out with the owners of the comedy club I'm working at here in Arizona, and that I watched or I listened to a guy named Rich Lowry, who I listen to. My political podcast that I listen to is called Left, Right, and Center, and it's a KPRW. What's it? It's not an NPR, but it's like KPRC, I think it is.
Okay.
It's a very the moderator's a guy from the he's very in the middle, and then he brings on an editor of a magazine from the left and an editor from the right, and I lean left of center, but I actually really respect the guy on the right a lot. I really like his points. I think he's great. I don't agree with him a lot, but I respect him so much. His name's Rich Lowry, and he was saying that all of this that's going on right now is there was a guy, Andrew Breitbart, that started Breitbart.com, learned from a guy like Saul Alinsky, who was a community organizer in the 1960s. Saul Alinsky was a very radical left community organizer, and he said, hey, let's spotlight the crazies on the right. Let's bring them out in the open and talk about them constantly. That'll push the moderates more to the left. And he said, so let's just keep highlighting the Ku Klux Klan and the evangelists and everybody, so that if you are conservative, you're like, look, I don't want to associate with those people. And I think what's happening right now, and I really do believe this, is that the people on the alt-right are digging up this stuff on anybody on the left to emphasize and highlight how radical they are, so that people that are like, I'm a moderate, I would say, or just a little bit left of center, that I go, I don't want to associate with these crazy people, and they're trying to shut down freedom of speech and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's the problem, is that these Antifa people and these really radical left people that want to, gender neutrality and change this and change that, and the super feminists, and they're the same as the people on the right that are the Antifas and the Ku Klux Klan. It's the same thing, and they're such a small minority.
5% on either side.
And we should just be ignoring them like we used to.
Yeah.
But it's clickbait. It creates stories.
Technology, information sharing. Everyone's got a voice.
Yeah. And I don't know how we're going to get back to ignoring them. But we do need to not silence it, but mute it out, because it's not where we all live.
Yeah.
And I see it being a comedian and going out and performing to the masses. I do stuff that's as offensive as Louis did, and I never have people walk out of my show. And occasionally they do, and the club goes, okay, so don't come back and see him.
Yeah.
That's how you handle this shit. So
that's a good point on when it's live and it's in person. Ironically, there's 1% of the entire audience that probably shouldn't show up anyways.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So
I don't understand why they do.
Everyone else is enjoying the conversation.
I don't understand why they do. And, if you're easily triggered, it's probably not the place you should go, or you should go to something, you should do your research.
Yeah. Or one out of the 300 people who were triggered had an injected value from something that they just read that they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You're supposed to act this way now.
I think that happens a lot.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that happens more than ever.
Because now it's a good identity for them.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You feel like something, right?
It is a whole new, I've seen that because there's two camps in comedy. There is the ones that are like, hey, and I'm not defending Louis C.K. and his actions or whatever he did. I don't know what he did, because that all was an article written from people's testimonies where it was a lot of he said, she said. There was no, this wasn't a court of law. So I don't even want to take an opinion on that. But a lot of people have no problem jumping on there and finding guilt immediately without due process or anything like that. So I don't ever say, I know Louis is a person, and I'll go, all I've ever experienced with Louis is I know he's a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
You could say the same about someone like Bill Cosby, but I didn't know Bill Cosby, but my friends that did, you know, like there were some weird interactions and stuff like. So I'm not going to judge the individual.
Yeah.
I don't know the individual, and I find it weird that people will judge. So
on the keyboard.
Yeah, and really commit to their stance on it. I heard Rogan say one time, he goes, I'm only 85% about everything. You know, he's like people say, are you pro-choice? And he goes, yeah, I'm pro-choice, but like maybe like 85%. You know, there's like 15% of my brain that's going, maybe this is
Still
wrong.
learning.
Yeah, and that's how I feel I am about everything too. So I don't like to take a stance on things because I feel like we're all flawed individuals.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the hypocrite going, he's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that people do this.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how much people are willing to take a stance on the internet. And I'm like, you're in a glass house. How dare you?
Yeah.
Like, and it's so obvious for me knowing all these public people to go, I've got shit on you right now. And I can't believe you're taking this stance when all I have to do is make one phone call and you're done.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. I think it's this narcissism that people just want to be part of the conversation and everybody wants to talk about it and have their opinion heard. And it's like, oh, they're all talking. I need to get into this talk.
Yeah.
And I'm taking the Wodcast way out of Wodcast because it's so relevant to what's going on.
No, it's back to our point on true conversation and getting to know the person.
Sure.
You know, and to my point that if you and I were to spend more time with each other throughout the day through conversation, we could disagree on multiple different points, but it brings us to what we're doing here, which is long form conversation.
Yeah.
To really get after some concepts or ideas.
Yeah.
Which is completely different than you and I bantering on Twitter with 100 characters back and forth on a topic. When really we could come together and have a conversation and kind of see each other's views and laughter and facial expressions and then get an idea of why we're doing what we're doing.
Well, I find that so much. The antisocialness of Twitter and all these things where people aren't getting the context of what people are saying or knowing the nuances.
The new media is making it tough today.
It's dangerous.
Because people want 10-second pieces. Yeah. Right? Because there's so much options. But we know the answer to some of those biggest issues takes hours in conversation. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And then secondarily, people are attempting to do that through podcasting, but not everyone is listening effectively to the entire podcast. So it's either at 2 times the speed to fit it into a smaller bracket.
You do that too?
Yeah. Or it's they're not really listening because they're saying and posting that they just listened to the podcast, but they actually didn't do it. But the podcasters think they have 10,000 subscribers, but they really have only affected maybe 10 people in the audience. That's only people that really listen.
It's a good point. We get to
there's so many. So how can everyone listen to a 2-hour podcast?
No, and we get to see the length that they listen. The average listening length is what you see. You don't see which every person. Okay. So you'll get.
That's good data.
Yeah, it is good data because they'll say they had 47 minutes. You know, you did an hour and 10 minutes. The average listener length was 47 minutes, and I was always amazed by that. Yeah. Because I would have said it's more like 5 minutes. Yeah. I would think there's people that click on, they listen for a little bit. And I was always amazed, and I think that's what's great about podcasting is that, you know, I listen a ton, and I lock in, and I'll stop, and I'll come back, and I'll start again, and I'm one of those people. I'm on airplanes all the time and driving a lot, and so I have time to listen. But
you go back to the 47 minutes, and it's like, oh, that's when we stopped talking about free speech, and we start discussing exercise.
Well,
it's like that critical period.
But we've never followed with this show. There's never been any rules, and that's what's great about it. And the discussions I've had have, if I was one of the other fitness podcasts, they're going to hear you talk about, you know, your theories on fitness and we get into that a little bit, but it's kind of what I'm interested in. But it's more of like people listen to this show because they want to hear the different side of you. That you're multidimensional, that you're not just this guy, like you're not a robot that comes in, although I think you are. And it's so hard to talk to you with all these books behind you because I have ADD and I'm going.
You set it up this way. You just take a picture after.
I know, but there's so many that I read so many of these and so many I haven't that I'm like, can you tell me about that book?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that book? Can you tell me about that book?
A lot of
he's got the best.
a lot of good stories here.
Sweet potato power.
Yep.
Wow.
Actually, I met her at Paleo FX.
She's into starches, huh?
Yeah, she was like, man, you gotta have my book. That was during the sweet potato rise.
Yeah.
In the paleo days. She early adopter. She got into put a book out on it.
I've read so much about sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Because the interesting thing I find is about how you cook them.
Yeah.
How the difference in sugar.
Yeah.
And people just automatically assume,
Yeah.
I'm throwing a sweet potato in, it's great.
Yeah, no. She talks about that in the book as well.
Yeah, there's
baking versus.
I just read about how even a baked potato, if you cook it, put it in the refrigerator, and then reheat it, it's already lost some of the starchy component and some of the sugary component. So there's so much to it. It's so complex, and I love to watch people talk about their diets and everything, and just go, like I know a little bit. I say I'm knowledgeable about 2%, and the vast majority of the world does 0.
Yeah. Yeah, but to that, your point is interesting. Not to take it down this route, but I think you believe that you're at 2% because the system has made you believe that you need to know 80%.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because
you know what I mean? You think you're at 2% because there's 1,000 voices out there saying you're no one if you don't do our system our way.
Sure.
And they'll use terms and et cetera to kind of
because everything's
dwarf the conversation on what you know what I'm saying?
I just thought that the other day. I was doing something and I thought people, if they talk with an authority, like a voice of authority, people will trust them and believe them.
Yeah.
And I've watched people who don't know what they're talking about talk like that and watch everybody believe them.
Yeah, I've been in that position.
Yeah.
As the person in the audience or up on stage, let's say, in that position. And you just got to know each position in order to be able to speak to it. And where you're preying on, we could be with good intention though. That's the thing.
Sure.
Is, if you're speaking dogma on principles and exercise, and you're faking it till you make it, but it ends up helping those people because they're principles, I'd argue that that's probably okay, as opposed to leading them all astray because you sound like an authoritarian figure, and it leads them to disarray.
There's a good song called "Science of Myth" by Old Man Markley. I think it's a cover that they did, but it's basically about that. About it doesn't matter what you believe if it helps you get to that place, and he's basically talking about religion. Like, if religion praying gets you through something, then fucking pray.
Take it till you make it.
Whatever's gonna get you, whatever's gonna cure your cancer. Play that game. I feel that a lot about Wim Hof. I've been, I've tried it. I've researched it. I've tried to find out about, all the aspects of it. And, I'm not, I always say this, I want to see the data. I want to see the science. I want to see more data. I want to see more empirical evidence. My buddy has an office somewhere down here. He built a thing called the Stratosphere. And I have him on the show all the time. They all know him, Crazy Bobby. And Bobby it's a hypobaric chamber that he is, I don't know why it's in Scottsdale, but he had it built in Australia. It's shipped here. Oh, because the Mayo Clinic is here.
Okay.
So he has the head of the Mayo Clinic, or the head of sports, you probably know the guy, the head of sports medicine there, is working with him on it.
Okay.
And it's a hypobaric chamber, not hyperbaric, it's hypobaric. And they do all these different pressure changes, and you exercise in it. And he believes it creates more blood cells and blah, blah, blah. And he's, out there, he raised capital for it, and he was having me introduce him to people, and I said, I want to see data. And he said, that's what we're doing. We're building this so that we can do the tests and prove, show the data, and this, to our intention is to heal people, that people will be able to heal disease, heal injury, heal things with creating more blood cells, so red blood cells. So I should hook the two of you up. You'd find him in Crazy Bobby's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I like that, the concept, whenever people propose to, because you mentioned it was going to be in a painful situation or a rehab situation, I think there's lots of promise to that. My point to your data excerpt, I think there's a lot of things that you and I do every day unconsciously that we have no data to support why we do it.
Yeah.
One would be intense exercise every couple of days. The argument would be that that's actually going to decrease our aging, so it's going to speed up aging. Yet you and I somehow believe, possibly, I'm putting us both in the camp.
No, but
there's no data.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when you say I want data, you may never get the data.
Sure.
Or you may not. You may be looking for data because you're scared of what may be proposed to be the answer inside of that.
Sure.
With the rehab methods, I find that it's almost into the, I guess, the nootropic, LSD, psilocybin, marijuana, hallucinatory movement towards super consciousness.
Sure.
It's the same thing, I think, that what you're talking about there. That the way I see it for like supplemental use, hyperbaric chambers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In a rehab situation or a pain, situation or disease situation, I think it makes a lot of sense. But the movement today towards that, not that you put this in this discussion, but I think it's an area that I'm glad you're asking for data, that I think that we keep forgetting biologically we have to recover ourselves from anything that we do, and it has to be from internal energy that derives that recovery.
Sure.
So anytime you're trying to have a system that helps you hack whatever you need to do to improve, there's numerous other systems that are all working at a specific style and speed that you're not also hacking to improve on its ability. So as an example, red blood cell, increase in numbers. So what happens if you don't have a certain amount of iron, or you can't absorb effectively, or you don't have the proper, you see where I'm going, right?
I see exactly
That's
where you're
just
going.
2 examples, right? There's 20 other systems that are not on board with your new system.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's the same thing as Mark Pro, Compex units, supplements, pre-workout formulas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're just facilitating possible overreaching because you're trying to upregulate one system that doesn't have all the other component systems to go with it.
Yep.
Which is the reason why, in order to improve or get better at anything, you need to do it with what you have capable.
Yep.
And then you only go back and do it again when you're fully recovered from your own energy that creates a recovery of that mechanism.
Yeah.
That's not where you were going with it, but
no.
The
But
point on that, I find that interesting when people want to hack that area.
It's very interesting.
It's for what reason?
It's very interesting you say that, because it's like I've been listening to a lot of Chris Kresser and him talking about all these epidemiological studies, and when somebody says, oh, well, the Japanese moved here and they got less healthy, and it's because they started eating more meat, and he's like, yeah, but were they more sedentary?
Yeah.
Did they do this? It's
So many
hard
factors.
to create a study that is, so even my friend doing all the research and all the, like you said, there's so many other factors in play. And I believe that with, when it comes to exercise, you've got a guy that, you do this, we all follow this system, and we'll all know, because there's so many other factors in play to your lifestyle and to who you are genetically, who you are philosophically, who you are. And so us being such individuals, it's really, really, I can't imagine how hard your job is.
Yeah, it is challenging for me because I have to make principles out of all of those systems.
Right.
So, let's say there's 20 systems that say this is what you need to do for food, right? I need to look across 10,000 people and experiences in my 25 years and figure out what are the principles that created success in all of those 20 systems, right? Because I need to be able to teach that to a coach who can teach it to the audience. Right. So I have to go through two levels. And the only way to do that is to create principles and to make the coach more conscious in terms of what are the principles inside of all those things, so they can think for themselves to figure out simple things like, what's the big movement on vegetarianism? Well, if you, as an example, if you actually look at the N=1 or N=50 of all those people you're discussing, most of them have come from a really shitty lifestyle, right? Which makes vegetarianism a fucking fantastic idea, right?
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that the general health measures that you have now for 2 years means anything that's worth shit for their lifetime, right? Or just because you saw a movie star choose it for their own, and that's fine too. And will people, when they start doing it, will they feel better for a while? Sure, if your previous 25 years was a shitstorm, but that doesn't make that system right. So the coach needs to be able to look at the entire piece of it and say, no judgment on the choice of vegetarianism, but why is it working for them at that current time? Because it's principle. What's the principle? You treated yourself like shit. Your systems are in overdrive. How do you clean that? You clean it up from, going away from protein. So it allows your system to digest more appropriately. It builds back up your immune system. Sure, you're going to feel better. But that doesn't mean that one system is the best for a 3-year-old, right? To start with.
I think the crucial thing you said there was you allow your coaches to think for themselves.
Yeah, they have to figure it out.
And
based upon principles.
And there's too much dogma out there, which is...
It's tough.
We're going to set up this system. You're going to follow this system because we have decided this is the best because we've done all the deduction and these are the ways it works. And this is why.
Here's our science.
This goes back.
Here's our 2 articles on our website.
Right, and this goes back to.
Here's our testimonials.
Why I kind of started the show and got into this because it was not an anti-CrossFit show. It was I couldn't buy into the dogma of it from the beginning, and I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and the 1 foot out, and I've done this with everything I do, is going, I got to make fun of this, because by making fun of it, a comedian, they say everybody looks at a box and describes the box, we turn it upside down and then look at it. So I had to turn CrossFit upside down and say, I got to find all the flaws in it, because I'm a sin, and I have to do that because if anything, that will make it better. Like fight the flaws.
Yeah.
And
create some humor around it.
I'm sure I would talk with Glassman and he would eat me alive, but I still would run away from him and go back and find my flaws. And I do with it, and that's why I don't buy in. And I think, as a general public, at least in America, that's it's what I did the whole last episode on. Is there is this growth of it. CrossFit was great. It started a revolution in fitness, and they've got a lot of people, there's Crazy Bobby right there. What are you doing calling me?
No, you just mentioned, you said anti-CrossFit, so I'm getting a phone call.
I wouldn't doubt it. I sometimes wonder how much they listen. I'm looking around for cameras. I got an email the other day saying, it was from CrossFit, saying, we want to send you something. I forget what it was, a t-shirt or something, about something to do with CrossFit that they're going off on, like some new, I forget what it was. Doesn't matter. Whatever it was, here's me. I'm like, they want my address. They want to know where I am now. Like, they're trying to figure it out. And I know some of those guys. They could call me on the phone and go, hey, where are you? Where are you living? What are you doing? But it was just creepy that I was like, I have a feeling there's more to this, and I'm just going to not answer. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just, they came after us for the name the one time, and they threw Armin out of the games everyone knows about, and they've got their business, and they're trying to make money, and that's, at the end of the day, that's what a lot of these things are. And I believe a lot of people have really good intentions, and I think it's like I said, the 85-15. They might have 85% intention to make the world a healthier place, and 15%, let's make a shitload of money, and I don't know where I stand on that. Part of me is I want to just entertain people and make people laugh, and then part of me is like, I want to make a shitload of money, or and I vacillate back and forth constantly. So I can't blame them. I can't point a finger at them. I try not to judge. I'm critical, but I try not to judge. That's a weird dichotomy, but I.
Love's a good balance, though.
Yeah, it's weird, and I'm still looking at your books. I can't. Have you read all of these?
No, there's a couple on top that I have for a lineup for
Oh, that's
the next
next.
couple of weeks.
And
But,
where do you find the time to read?
morning times, sitting here in my office in between some consultations or some training.
Right.
Trips, like you, I travel
Mhm.
at times, and I can fly through a bunch during that time. Just make time.
How do you stay off your phone and do it? Because I found
Well, I use my phone a lot for media as well,
Mhm.
podcasts or reading as well. So I don't, but if you were asking that in terms of reading books on my phone, I only read hardcover or sorry, paper. I'm not sure what the terminology is, but I can't read like on a Kindle or my
yeah.
phone.
Oh, me neither.
I like taking notes and like bending it and smelling it. You know,
Yeah.
I like the feel of that. But for the phone, I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. But I generally get my information and stay in contact with people too.
What I meant was, my go-to used to be I'd get on a plane, pull a book out, read the book.
Yeah.
Now I get on the plane, I've got my phone there.
Oh,
I've got
okay.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I've got,
Yeah.
until that plane, I've got podcasts on there. I can play around on my
Yeah.
phone. There's so much in there, and it keeps me. I think I used to read, 10 books a month or so, like crazy number of books I used to read a month. Now it's like I'm lucky to get one in because I read the news constantly.
Yeah.
As a comedian, we have to stay up on the news and we have pop culture and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm not learning anything. I'm just storing shit like in my frontal lobe. And
When
then
you
it
do the
just
book
goes
or
up.
when you stay
when
on top of
when I'm
culture?
on the phone.
Oh, okay.
And nothing's really resonating.
Yeah. There's a lot that's going in there. You're just not aware that you're picking up on a lot of it.
I'm worried that it's not though.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like
that's
this is where you acquire real knowledge, because with a book, you can go back, go over it, go back, go over it.
Okay, so on that point, I think some of the things that people may look at value in terms of seeing books is that it's based upon what you perceive to be something that you may wish to be or something that you think is worthwhile. So individuals may look at books and see school. Some individuals may look at books and see worthiness. Some people may look at books and see intellect. And then you've got to scour that entire continuum and say, what's influencing me to look at those books and go, right? So you may be looking at books and saying, I don't take enough time for myself, right? Because that's what books is as a form of meditation or kind of being alone with your thoughts, right? As far as acquiring knowledge, I think something that I would add to people who like to, pull in information and read stuff, not just for meditation purposes like Harlequin romance examples, right? Which is, again, if it shuts people's brains down and creates more of a parasympathetic state, that's fine. But I generally get to use these things.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read something, like you and I just discussed the Google engineer Davidovit's, information, do you see I've just used the information that I got in the book.
Sure.
So if you read a book but you can't use it within a couple of days or in your conversation or in your day-to-day access, then you're probably not really acquiring any of it. I don't know if that helps in terms of the shit you're reading in pop culture.
Yep.
So my argument to you would be, I think you do, because part of your job is to stay on top of what's current, right? And because you're using it in your language, right? When you're on stage and you're performing, and you're talking to me, you can have those conversations. So I think you're picking up on a lot of it because you get to use it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I saw somewhere, and I just had this random thought. I saw somewhere once where I think it was you on a video competed against the UFC.
Joel Jameson's test.
Yeah, interesting. And I think I've talked about it on the show. They did some kind of fitness test to see the level of fitness of their UFC fighters.
Yeah, he has a standard protocol of some 3-minute intervals with a minute rest, I think, between multiple different modalities. And you just do as much power as possible in the 3 minutes on these different modalities, and you just add up scores.
Right. And where'd you finish on that?
Percentile wise, I don't know. I think it was top 15 overall in the testing, something like that. Right. But one of the limitations was the endless rope. So as of course a scientist, I was looking across all of them beforehand going, okay, I got to do this, pace this here. The endless rope was my nemesis. So if you look at all the data points of all the scores of power and all the other ones, I was scored really high in relation to everything else. But when it came to the endless rope, the kinds of contractions that a specific mixed martial artist would have, irregardless of capacity, because they would have good capacity for all the other modalities, they are so far indifferent in improvement to me in the characteristic that's required for the endless rope.
And why is that?
It's the kind of grip
Yep.
that's required. So for my sport, or at the time for my sport, it's these styles of contractions that is not, I'll describe it as, it's not a grasping or grinding contractions that are required for our sport. It's very fast,
Sure.
pulsing contractions or maximal contractions
Sure.
for the grip.
Sure.
So this ability, you know, because strongman, for example, wasn't a big part of our sport since 2008, right? If it was, I think all of us would have more grasping style. Or, for example, if 2 times a week .com posted back in 2005, instead of press 1RM today, you know, roughhouse and fight with someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, like, I mean, if we had jujitsu as a part of the
Right.
high intensity interval practice,
Sure.
I would argue we'd be in a total different state of fitness today, because there's some characteristics with inside that, back to my point of this grasping and movement orientation that happens in pugilism or fighting,
Right.
that you don't get with just working against the barbell or the shit that I was doing. So I shit the bed on the endless rope, and that's what put me in a worse place
Interesting.
compared to everyone else.
I'm going to ask a bunch of other little questions like that, because for people that don't know, and for me myself, your background and everything, but I want to kind of speed through this so we can get to more juicy stuff that we can dig in. But what was the year you won the CrossFit Games?
2007.
2007. How long had you been CrossFitting?
3 years.
3 years, and that was the first games ever.
Yes.
And how'd you find CrossFit, first of all?
A friend
And you were
who was a fighter that I was helping with his training.
And you were a personal trainer at the time.
Yes.
Okay. And did you start teaching CrossFit, or were you just?
Yeah, immediately started implementing it, not only for myself as kind of my exercise, but using some of the ideas for my own clients as well.
And you were doing that here in?
No, in Calgary.
Oh, you were up there, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So I knew that, but
Yeah.
maybe they don't know that you were.
I was in Calgary from 99 to 2011.
And so you went from when the games came about, you were already fully into CrossFit?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like you called it 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I was probably 20 feet deep in.
Wow. So it was
So in.
Did you find it just so revolutionary when it came to fitness that?
Yeah, I had so the 2 things that I immediately saw from this new concept was decades and decades of possible work on this new form of energy system training that I saw inside of it. Because when I saw power cleans, ring dips, and run around the building for 15 minutes, everyone else saw that as blasphemy against weightlifting and high intensity bullshit. What I saw was a whole new form of work.
Right.
And how to wrap myself around that for 50 years.
Yeah.
Right? So I saw a future based upon it. Secondly, what people forget, I did it because I did it for me. Like, I did it because I was an athlete.
Right.
So I did it to beat everyone on there every day.
What was your background as an athlete?
I was a young athlete since, I'd say, before age 10. So everything I did post-school was some form of athleticism, of community sports.
Right.
So I was the typical kid in the community that was known as the all-around athlete.
Okay.
Okay, that was me. Hated school, did okay in school, but all I did and all I wanted to do was sports.
Right.
Okay. And it basically just continued from there.
Were you hockey?
Yeah, hockey and soccer were the 2 ones that I gained more notoriety with, just based upon my background, but I played all of them and enjoyed all of it. And I wouldn't have chose any of them as professionalism if possible.
Right.
I wanted to go the soccer route, had an injury, and then that's what kind of turned me into falling in love with strength and conditioning. And then after that, played with everything you can think of in terms of what was offered then.
Yeah.
I went after it to try to understand it because it was part of my academia as well. And that led to,
Did you go to school for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you?
My background is in physical education,
Okay.
kinesiology,
Right.
and biology.
Okay. Wow. So you got it all.
Just got those.
So then, what do you think was when you went to the CrossFit? You were already competing on the message boards.
Yeah. So it was fairly similar, just to get there and show up in front of other
I remember
people.
when I started. That's back when everybody would post on there. And I remember I would do the workout, and I thought I was badass as shit. And then I would go on and look and go, what the fuck? Who are these people?
Yeah, that's why I started videotaping myself, because people
I
didn't
thought
believe
everyone
me.
was lying.
Yeah, people didn't believe me.
I was like, these guys are cheating. There's no possible way human beings can do this.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, I'd have a one that just kind of was in my wheelhouse, and I would do really well on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would look, and I'd be like, hey, I'm beating a lot of these guys up here. But it was, you know, and that's what
hurdling.
it is about CrossFit. Yeah, it was
That's when
like
hurdles show up.
110-meter hurdles, once for time.
Which we know that's not true, because it'd never be one for time.
Yeah, exactly. It was so funny when they did the
It'd be 35
when
hurdles.
when the what was the competition they had in Orange County, the OC Throwdown.
Yeah.
When they did the hurdle jumps,
yeah.
I'm watching that, and we used to do that in practice all the time. We would set up 10 hurdles at 42 inches, and we would jump over, walk up, jump over, walk over, jump over, and we trained in this 3 days a week. Like literally, it was part of our hurdle drills. And I watched when they programmed it, and I went, "Oh, this is going to be hilarious." I go, "There are going to be some serious injuries," and I think people.
There's supposed to be breakaway. I think my brother helped program that. There was supposed to be breakaway hurdles. That was the thing, but something happened in the design.
I love that your brother programmed it, because we had on the guy, the director of the OC Throwdown, and I think I was telling him, I was like, "There's going to be carnage everywhere." It's like, I'm telling you, people are going to fall backward, like land on their hamstrings, fall backwards.
That's still a meme on.
Is it really?
On fitness today. Yeah, so many people are using that.
CrossFit fails are some of the greatest fails. Somebody just showed
the shittiest ones too, like the slipping off the bar for toes to bar, chest to bar muscle ups. Those are the worst.
That's
I can't watch those.
I've had
the barbell ones are shitty too, but slipping off the bar is.
But a few little things happen to me. I came down the rope once and jumped and landed on the edge of the rope and sprained my ankle. I've had some dumb ones that I've done, but the one that I see that terrifies me is the snatch one all the time. I mean, that just
landing on the back of their head.
Back of their head, or when they go backwards and the bar comes down. Luckily, it clears them.
Yeah.
But I never want to be in that position. I've in my old age, I've just basically kind of decided that like 1 rep max is for me. When it's I know they're good, but I'm phasing them out of my, you know, when it comes to like children and longevity and stuff like that. I only take so many risks.
Good for what though? You know they're good. What are they good
for? Maybe for building strength, but I mean, how much strength do I need?
Exactly. It's about function. That's where unfortunately we've gone that way in not just strength but anaerobic work and also aerobic work. We forget that there's a massive difference between performance versus health.
Mm-hmm.
And there hasn't been a defining program because no one has defined what health is. So if we define health as being able to climb a mountain at 95, so I just describe it in humorous settings of, you know, being able to have sex in the morning.
Yeah.
Climbing a mountain at 95 and then fucking falling to your death, you know, and smiling on the way down, that would be a good definition of what health is. And if you reverse engineer that back, you know, going after what we propose to be these methods of improving all three of those areas is not connected to that.
That's interesting that you say that, the reverse engineering.
It's because of academia and performance always is entertaining. So everyone wants to put it inside of health for fitness. But back to my point that I picked on your 1RM, like what's so important about the 1RM?
Interesting.
In performance, it's quite important. If you want to, you know, ensure people are improving in fitness in a strength conditioning facility in a football gym, that's probably important.
Mm-hmm.
But try to pick out of 7 billion humans, how many times someone needs to go through something that is that maximal contraction in order to get to the 95-year-old climbing a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to argue till I'm blue in the face to show you that you don't necessarily need to have that.
Mm.
So it's about intention of why you're doing it. Back to your point of it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We gotta become more conscious in understanding why we're doing what we're doing. That's my whole shtick. Is why are you doing what you're doing in exercise?
It's funny you say that. I forget what town I was in, but I was at a CrossFit gym, and I went in, and the owner, you know, I dropped in and we started working out and we had a workout, and then I came the next day and I was doing well, and it was a couple things that were in my wheelhouse, and I was doing sit-ups, and the coach starts yelling. He's competing. He's doing it like we're all. And he looks at me and he goes, "No rep, no rep." And I was like, "I'm not here to." And I was like, "Do you want me to do more of the like?" Sit-ups are easy. You know, this is easy for me. This is the easy part of it. This part of it's easy. Maybe me, you know, the sled, you'll see me.
I'm
thinking
like, about my comedy routine right now.
Yeah,
Let me go.
The way he yelled at me, "No rep," I was like, we're not at the games, and I'm sorry if my range of motion isn't where you want it, and I will fix that, but we're not, and it was like there was a competition. And it was that, I guess the day before I put up a better score or something. And I never even put my scores up, but I'm never competing. And, but I saw it affected his ego. So the next day, and he was a bigger guy, he had programmed like something with snatches and blah, blah, blah. And I walk in and he goes, "How's your snatch?" And I go, I don't. And he goes, or I go, I don't know. I don't really focus on. He goes, "You don't know? Why not?" And I go, snatch has never made me money or gotten me laid, so I don't really focus on it. And he goes, "Well, then why do you do CrossFit?" And I said, I have a daughter that's like 2, and I want to live long to help her and be there for her and be able to play sports with her and have an active lifestyle with her. And he looks at me and he goes, "That's a great answer." Oh. And the ego went away and he went, "You're right." And I think I hit him with something of like, we're all here for different reasons. Yeah. And so to follow this template of, you have to be good at this, you have to be good at this, you should work on this because this is one of your weaknesses. Maybe you don't have to work on it.
No, that's only in the conversation of performance.
Yeah.
So it does matter, absolute standards of your snatch and how efficient it is and how well you do it in a dynamic situation under metabolic fatigue, et cetera, does matter if your intention is to win at something within the sport. But I've made this statement numerous times before, but two things, there's probably 1% to 2% of 500,000 people that participate in the Open that, number one, can actually participate. That could be another podcast where we'll discuss what that means.
Oh God, I can talk about that forever.
Secondly, 1% to 2% have the right intent, meaning they're doing it to compete. The rest are participating. So this difference between competition and participation does matter, because we do work with a lot of the 1% to 2% that actually do find it serious and take it seriously. And there is a very complex, intricate thing in there. If you need to get someone's AMRAP ring muscle ups up to 15 because they do 3, but they can snatch a house. So there isn't the anything program that works for that person, right? And I just gave you 2 examples. There could be 17 other things that you need to fix. But why is that important? Because they want to kill things. Right. They want to eat your children. Or they want pain and points and prizes and pleasure, right? Sure. And that's their intention. And, we need to honor that. But also, we can't slap that on top of health, where, to your point, you just want to be consistent, right? And what does consistency means? I don't give a shit about your snatch score in relation to your, your lunging ability when you're tired. Like it really, for me, you just need to move every day and move safely. And then that conversation can get a little bit more in depth. Like, what should you really do? And again, I think it's got to go back to, number 1, why are you exercising? Number 2, what is your real long-term intentions and goals? And because I'll continue to argue the point that, we're here as intelligently designed humans now. It's not about survival and reproduction anymore. So we have to be able to induce our own pain of strengthening in order to just keep moving forward to sustain as long as possible. Like, you and I don't need to work out to go to war. Or you and I don't need to work out because we're, taking care of our farm and our children. Right? We have porcelain seats and phones and big tubes that carry us around from place to place. Shit's pretty easy. Yeah. So what is our physical training that's required? Not a lot.
So is that difficult for you? I mean, it seems like you're in the same paradox that CrossFit has this division now where there's CrossFit Health that Glassman's going with and Castro's going with games. You coach athletes, or you coach coaches, but you also coach games athletes, and then you're coaching health. So is that difficult for you that you're in 2 different worlds?
No, it's not, because you just create organization around the language of the intent. So I coach coaches who coach people in health, and I coach coaches who coach athletes.
Okay.
So it's just the language of intent that's a very fine line. So like this morning we had a conversation, you saw our meeting that we were having with the coaches. We always start with, well, what's the intention of the client? So if the intention of the client is to win shit, then it points directly to the left. I'm not using left or right here in terms of ideology, and then if if the intention is to look good naked, to live long and prosper, etc., it's the other fucking side of the continuum.
Yep.
It's not a close second. It's the other side of the continuum.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then you have to say, well, what should I actually have to do as tools to get towards those goals of life and health? Again, it has to come back to what are biological principles that are going to get you to that point.
Well,
and what they are, you know what they are? It's some resistance every now and then and easy, long aerobic work. But that's not sexy and it's not entertaining. And we're trying to squeeze it into the middle with intense activity, making everyone think they need to do something really intensive. Why? You're just fixing a shitty lifestyle. You're fixing a shitty lifestyle, and no one has time. So we have to shorten all those things because no one can walk for 2 hours anymore, right? So if your answer to, well, James, people can't walk for 2 hours is because they don't have time, that doesn't make walking for 2 hours wrong. That makes their lifestyle wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and you can't fix their lifestyle as much
well,
as
we can help.
Right,
but what's your goal, right? Again, and the reason why I use the walk for 2 hours, do you plan on climbing a mountain when you're 95? Or do you want to sit in a home from the time you're 80 to 95?
Right.
And so we can mathematically reverse engineer that. Okay, you're 35 right now. You're not even woke to the fact that the next 45 years matter for that. But let me just tell you, there's mathematical models that will tell you, you probably need to prepare for walking for 80 to 95. How do you do that? You sure shit don't do slight knee valgus in your shitty clean in class 3 times a week, right? And hope that nanotechnology is going to take care of that knee, because that's going to be very costly in 15 years when you're going to have to get a new knee or a prosthetic that's probably very easily uploaded off Amazon that you can do, but it's a high cost to that. So people, back to my point, there needs to be a very clear delineation. I don't find it challenging whatsoever, of what is your intention. If your intention is health, it's way over here. If your intention is performance, you want to eat people and eat their lunch. And your intention has to work towards that. And even when those people who are over in that area have a slight incorrect intention, it always fucks up the pathway or the journey, and everyone gets quabbled in trying to fix all their limitations, yet their intention is completely incorrect. They're doing it for popularity. They're doing it to be popular. They're doing it for love and acceptance. And that's the wrong reason to be doing the sport. You got to do it for maximal expression.
Well, I think that happened with there wasn't anything going on when I found CrossFit. There wasn't anything going on that was this philosophy. There was, you could go to the gym, you could do 3 sets of 10 and 3 different exercises. There was the bodybuilding world. There was the conditioning world. You want to go do marathons or do triathlons or do 10K running. There was no all over body work kind of, you'd see these TRXs things or whatever was going on. And all of a sudden there was this philosophy of, hey, we've done all the science for you through deduction, through everybody trying things and what works and doesn't work. And here's the template. This is it. This is maximal health. This is, you are going to be healthy for the rest of your life, and you're going to be a badass, and we figured out your diet, and we figured out everything for you. And it was dogma, and it was science, and it was their science, and it was, okay, these guys they've done it. I'm gonna listen to them. And then as you're in it long enough, you start going, wait, that's not true.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
That wasn't right.
Yeah, that's because it wasn't science. And a lot of it was some things in which they took, I'll just use the example, especially the high intensity model, which in some cases can have some, first of all, the definition of it is really weird, but especially in the scientific literature, but people took the dose response of it and said, because this is the dose response of what we get from going all out for 1 minute, we should probably intervene this into everyone's program. Why? No one has time to do 60 minutes of walking. And the answer for, well, why don't you just do 60 minutes of walking? then they would say, well, we have science that would refute the fact that you'll burn more fat in a window after the 1 minute intense. Who the fuck cares about burning fat? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the whole proxy was, but you will look good naked. Mm-hmm. You see, the proxy went away from doing this forever.
Right. Do
you see what I'm saying?
Back to...
It's unsustainable methods.
Interesting.
Unsustainable methods are unsustainable.
Interesting. I never thought.
What do you want to do? You want to sustain till you're 95?
Yeah.
You probably want to do sustainable methods.
Interesting.
What is high intensity? Unsustainable methods.
So, in saying this, have you moved away from your coaches that are coaching for health? Have you moved away from high intensity interval training?
Yeah,
or are
definitely.
you still doing it, but with, I've noticed a lot more gyms, because I get to, I have this cross-pollination of going from gym to gym to gym, that I am never on my own program. I've got to jump in on their classes. I sometimes get to do my own thing, which is always really weird if I'm doing it. And
sit-ups.
Yeah, that's all I can do. I usually do things.
You don't want
that I surf a lot, and I mountain bike, and I hike, and I want to do things that'll help me to do those well. So, and I also just don't want to do things I know will hurt me. Mm-hmm. And I am trying to avoid injury at all costs. Mm-hmm. That's why I really liked Alchemy 365, because I liked a little bit of the high intensity interval training, but also the yoga that was
the bipolar.
I've been having this shoulder impingement for 6 months, and I have tried everything from crossover symmetry, you name it, physical therapists, everything. I swear I did yoga the other day, and the impingement's gone. Yeah. And I'm like, why didn't I just go to yoga class? Yeah. How did that cure this in one day? Yeah. So I'm almost like, it could be back in a day or two, and it might because of poor movement. But I'm like, did that just fix this? I'm kind of stunned. But anyway, going back to...
Or you may have gotten there because the intention was wrong, where you went overhead because someone told you you're supposed to go overhead.
Right.
But the two things that I've heard you speak of, overhead in swimming to get out to the wave, or you know, saying hi to someone on your bike, doesn't involve what you were doing in overhead in practice.
Sure, probably.
So see where the lifestyle versus consistency needs to change?
Yes. So if you're getting away, my point is, so you're getting, what I was
back to the question, I'm sorry,
but let
I'll
me say
answer quickly though.
What I noticed about going to all these gyms is that everybody's getting away from like these, I don't see as many AMRAPs. I'm seeing a lot of 2 minutes with a minute recovery, 2 minute recovery, 2 minute, a minute, lot of recovery. And which is how I trained in track, which, people studied track for many, many years to get guys to run as fast as possible and break up. And when I went to CrossFit, I was like, well, maybe they figured something out that all these exercise physiologists for years have been wrong about. And now I'm seeing it get back to that. Yeah. And I'm wondering, is that what or are you into the, the endurance and long anaerobic? What is it that you're kind of teaching now?
So first of all, I'll answer the question. My tone has changed, yes, on the effect of anaerobic training or intense training, and we have been teaching it in 2 clear lanes now. So to the general population, we generally teach how to get them to move effectively, and it's generally through some great resistance practice and how to teach aerobic mechanisms. In a performance setting, we have to go and teach them about intensity, and there has to be a pathway to, as my example, to fix the snatch and the ring muscle, et cetera. So it is over there. For how I teach people, I forget what your question was, but how I teach people the principles of all those 3 buckets. How do you get stronger? How do you become more anaerobic? Or how do you become more aerobic? And inside of the progress and the progressions of each of those areas, the coach gets to extract principles to teach whoever they want to progress them in those areas. But again, it has to come back to the intent. So it doesn't matter what I teach, it's what the client's intention is. So if their intention is to live long and prosper, then back to my point, you only need to have correct progressions of strength safely relative to their function, and arguably just aerobic progressions. Why? Because their intention is to live long and prosper, right? not to do this intense shit for 10 years to look good naked to get a partner, or to, get through this stressful period so that they can retire successfully, right? That's still a fast track model that's going to come back to haunt them, because now they have 10 years of shit behavior and bad metabolism, right? And so most people, they won't fix that. They'll look like just like sick people at 50 years of age, ironically, because intense activity, I think, is right next to disease and sickness, whereas vitality contains good resistance.
So funny you say that. I have my guest next week is Dr. Drew, who is a good friend of mine, and we're going to talk about body dysmorphia and the exercise addiction, that people have, that you say it's almost like another form of sickness.
Yeah.
And
well, ask him definitely the question on, because in the dysmorphia conversation, there's a really uncomfortable spot in there where they seem to forget about the intention, right? So if the intention for someone looking good naked is for them to have good general health measures, right?
Sure.
And that's an addiction that will bring them till 90 years of age with good health.
Yeah.
I have no problem with your vision of your six pack.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I get a problem if you get there through heroin.
Yeah.
Right? No, I'm saying, like,
I get
if you
you,
lose your teeth over it,
right,
that's a problem.
Right.
If you're pissed off because people look good naked on Instagram,
sure,
that's your fucking problem.
So
the dysmorphia issue is, because I feel, especially today, it's moving towards all kinds of amounts of body fat is accepted. The conversation of dysmorphia
absolutely
has moved for a hate towards leanness.
Oh, yeah.
Right? With that being attached. I just want to make mention of that
I
talk to him.
I do a joke about that on stage about fit shaming.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, oh, you're one of those guys that works out all the time. Like, when you do CrossFit or so, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm the bad guy because I want to live long and be healthy. And you've got Cheeto dust on your fingers, you fat fuck. I get very mad at that too. But I think a better analogy of what you're saying, heroin, like the steroid use. Somebody abusing, performance-enhancing drugs to get there, their intention to look that way, where they're ultimately going to, to me, that's some kind of psychological disorder, that you're willing to risk your health for the appearance, or for, like, I've never, like, I want to look good naked. I want to, that's part of it. I'm more health oriented, but obviously everybody wants to look good. We're all insecure and we all want to attract a mate. That's part of psychology. But I've never understood bodybuilding to the point of, to me, when I see those competitions and I see people involved, I used to work at a Gold's Gym in Venice. I was like, these are mental patients. I would walk around the gym just looking at everybody going, you need to be locked up. Like, this is not normal. You can't take your shirt off. You're having trouble because your muscles have gotten that big. And we've had some of these guys on the show, and it's
there's a continuum of addiction, and it's about it goes back to what the intent is, and how you measure and rule what is general health measures. Right? Secondary to that, it's outside of my scope, but I would suggest people listen to Gabor Mate's knowledge on addiction behaviors and psychological behaviors around addiction, because he would then be able to get people more conscious to the fact of your commentary on, well, is it doing them a good, right? And for 7 out of 10 of the things in their life, it's doing them quite a service, right? But when it comes to judgment on what it means to overall health, that's where it gets gray, right? And then you're like, well, where does heroin sit in relation to steroid use? And you can't put them in the same bucket, right? Because, again, it has to do with general health measures for whatever the intent is for the addiction, right? So the same could be for those I would fall into that quasi category, intense fitness enthusiasts or exercise enthusiasts that could be unknowingly doing harm to their cardiovascular system, heart, et cetera, that at 62 may just not work, right? It's unknowing. But you see, you're going to weigh out the insurance of the pleasure that I get from my 2.5-hour bike ride yesterday. I'm not going to take that away. Is that an addictive behavior? Possibly. Or if it is, if you classify it as that, I'm okay with that. It comes down to the judgment of what that means. So back to the steroid folks, you got to go back to, I think, what are they doing day to day? Like Ronnie Coleman, right? As an example, to sway it way over.
Sure.
The guy, was a peace officer, probably helped millions of people, inspire them to be more healthy. You see where I'm going with it?
Yep.
He was robust and gargantuan and et cetera, et cetera. What's the overall damaging effects of that for him as a human?
I often
it's
wonder,
only for him to decide.
I often wonder that about the human growth hormone because, from the little I know about it, there's a lot of, it will make you healthier. It will, injuries, it'll improve injuries and you'll feel younger and all these different things, but it can also age you quicker where you can, die at an earlier age. So it's like, well, you're getting this quality of life, but you're shortening your life. So it's one of those things going,
It's back to the hyperbaric chamber though.
Yeah.
If you're an NFL player and you need to take growth hormone to pay bills, to put food on your table, and to give your kids an education for the next 20 years, who am I to argue that? That's not my shit, right? And if you fuck up where you get tested, that's your problem, right? That you get busted with it. But who am I to fucking judge that person, right? So if you want to pick those battles with it, in most cases it's a rehab. So for people who are taking growth hormone because of an anti-aging doctor that said it'd be good for them and where they sit, just don't forget to look at the fact that you had really shitty behaviors for 40 years, right? That's your shit to deal with. The problem is that we all can't take a 3-year sabbatical, go live in a fucking cabin and hunt our own salmon to fix ourselves, right? So could that 42-year-old man use growth hormone for the next 6 years, give them more vitality, make them have some purposeful things in life, really contribute? Who am I to fucking judge that person, right? Even if it does make them age sooner. But that person can't forget that they fucked up for 42 years. They have a shit lifestyle that made them want to have growth hormone.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? There's going to come a time where we're going to be more accepting of those, let's call them hormones, peptides, IV solutions for amino acids, all the weird gray areas that are really still fixing a shitty lifestyle. Don't forget that. You're fixing a shitty lifestyle, but be careful on the judgment of it when it gets into performance or if it's like, well, what are you contributing based upon the usage of that? Because there's a shit ton of people that use hormones that are not performing, that are contributing to society.
True.
And if that ages them sooner, that's their own shit to deal with.
Did you hear Lance Armstrong on the Joe Rogan podcast?
No, I have not.
It's really good. It's real, because he talks about the thing he was most let down about was all the work that he did for cancer, that he claims, like they let him loose and cut ties with him when he built that by being such a great athlete. And he said, yes, I was using steroids, and yes, I don't want to get into like him as a person and how he treated people or any of that stuff, but he said I won the Tour de France on steroids. I beat everybody else on steroids. They were all on steroids. I was the best on steroids. If you took us all off steroids, I would have won. He said, I just was able to, on that, we were on the same playing field. And so why is he the one to take the fall? And I remember,
because he won.
Exactly. Well, I remember when...
and you have to include the conversation of being an asshole.
True.
You
true.
do. So.
True. And Ben Johnson, when he got busted, I remember I asked my coach at the time, I said something about Carl Lewis and blah, blah, blah. And he said, when Ben Johnson got busted, he said everyone was on steroids. He said they were all doing steroids and they needed to stop it. So if you go after the guy who comes in 8th, they're not going to stop. But if you stop number 1, it's going to scare them all. And so that's why they went after Ben. But I've heard other stories and everything with Victor Conti and everything saying, he was drugged and blah, 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 because he was probably on another steroid and this. I mean, when you get into the steroid conversation, that's a whole, I mean, that's a 20-hour podcast.
That's deep.
And I've tried to, I keep trying to hook up with either Victor Conti or John Romano or Tony Roberts or one of these guys, because I really, really want to go. I don't think people realize how rampant it is in the CrossFit world.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's I think there's a large population of competing athletes that are using, and I'm not here to judge them.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it goes back to this, what is your intention? I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
And also, if everyone else is on this level,
Yeah.
you have to compete at that
Yeah.
level.
So let's just say that the organization, or whatever the organization is, the structure, and this sounds like crazy talk, but this is how you have to brain stretch why things are happening the way they are with steroid use or whatever the case may be. There was one event every year. It was 2 weeks and it was live, okay? And you had to pay a certain amount to sign up, 2 or 3 years in advance. And by signing up, and there's limited spots that get you into signing up, by signing up, you sign on the dotted line that someone could show up to your house, and within 24 hours, you have to provide a specific sample. Or there was fast enough technology that they could request from an email that has to be answered in 3 hours, a blood prick sent away immediately from you, knowing it was you because you signed up and we have your information. Do you see how that would change entirely the terms of usage for hormone use or steroid use within the sport? Is because there's so many openings, right?
Yeah.
With sanctioning, with the competition.
Yeah.
There's so many people that can compete weekend competitions
Yeah.
6 times a year. It's human nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's human nature.
I've said this a
If
million
you have
times.
to do so much volume,
Yeah.
you have to complex and hyperbaric chamber that shit. And you are going to squeak into supplements. You are going to squeak into something to give you 2%.
Yep.
Because it's sport.
Yep.
Right? Don't be so fucking naive to think. But the things
Swimmers shave their
but
legs.
the things that change it, is organizational design of entry and how you're a part of the organization for the sport. Because they want inclusion, because they want 500,000 people, they want everyone in, but they will have practices of ensuring how they measure folks as a backwards approach, meaning that you get to this point and then we might test you. Meanwhile, you've made 150K and you've washed your system out by the time you got to that point when you're tested. See what I'm saying? So don't be so naive to think that, why would people not do it if it gives you an edge for performance, right? And if some morals come up in you in terms of cheating in sport, you just really haven't been in athletics long enough to understand the morality behind that.
There's a documentary I've talked about many times on here. I think David Paradiso from Paradiso CrossFit brought it up, and it was on Netflix. I tried to find it again recently. I couldn't find it, but it's about cheating. And they did this thing where they tested people, and they had them, these guys had this theory about that everybody cheats, and they had people come in and take a test. And they would say, it was like a Scantron type of test, and they would take it, and they would say, now we're going to give you the answers, and you grade yourself at how many you got right and how many you got wrong. You get $1 for every point. There were 20 questions. You get $1 for every one you get right. Come up, just put your sheet right through the shredder and tell us what you got and we will pay you. But the people didn't realize that as it was going through the shredder, it was scanning their results to see how many they got right. And they said everybody lied. And it wasn't that they would say,
back to our book.
They would say, they wouldn't say, I got 20 right, give me $20. They would say, I got 9 right, but they would get 7 right. And the theory of their whole documentary was that it's those people cheating a little bit that affect society more than there were outliers that would come in and go, they'd get none right. Be like, I got 20. Like there were always guys just 20, hand me my $20 and walk out. But most people cheat just a little bit. And when it comes to that, that's why I don't want to be a hypocrite and say everybody's going to look for their advantage. I've heard so many countless stories in sports. I had a friend who worked in a booth at a famous football game. He was one of the, like on the coaching staff. And it was a famous game. It was like an Oklahoma something game. And they were in their booth and there was something wrong with the headphones and they were on the frequency of the opposing team. And they could hear the plays being called of the other team. And the coaches in the booth got together and they said, do we tell the head coach? And one of the guys said, no, let's just go. And so they knew every play that was being called by the opposing team, and then they would call in their defensive, like how they were going to play it, and they beat them. And so they were able to cheat. And that's why when people, inflate gate and they go after, Belichick for this and that, it's sport. And that's what Lance Armstrong said. He said the Tour de France has been, it's been a sport of cheating.
Yeah.
Like they've been cheating.
Oh, they've been on heroin in 1910 and coke, right?
Yeah, crazy shit.
They were snorting shit back then.
One of the ones he mentioned was crazy. He said when they were riding the hills, a guy would come by on a motorcycle and hand you a cork that had fishing line in it. And the fishing line would be connected to the guy on the motorcycle, and you would put the cork in your mouth and hold onto the cork and ride up the hill as it tugged you up the motorcycle would tug you up the hill.
That's
so
good.
We live in a culture of cheating. I mean, look around you.
Yeah.
And for people to think like,
just don't be naive.
Don't be naive. It bothers
and listen,
me.
even if you, I was going to say, maybe you need to still speak to, if you want to get an idea on like what the truth is, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're like, no, I really want to know, because people make the comment, everyone's juiced in the sport. It's like, well, no.
No.
It's costly, it's complex, etc. But take it from me, I've been blindsided numerous times.
Right.
Numerous times.
Yeah.
From people, dude, I would tell you, I'd spend years with them.
Yep.
Right? As an athlete.
Yep.
And still be surprised to the fact that happened.
Yep.
So don't think that's naive to it.
Yeah.
But just remember,
it's
always go back to
just like the Google
person.
search.
Yeah, always go back to, you're really not going to get what's going on in someone's head, or what I call, they'll never deal those cards to you because they have their own intentions, and their own desires, and their own fears that they have to deal with. And listen, unless they're standing next to you on the podium, or they got a spot above you, that's the only time where you have the full-on right to create some judgment around what their practices are. But until that point in time, it is still admirable to be clean. It's admirable to be that way, and just do the best you can.
It's funny, we've had so many games athletes on this show, and we joke around with them, like, who does it, and they never talk about it on the show. And we get off the air, and they're like, blah, blah, and they're always pointing the finger at someone else that's, they always have that guy in the games that they think is just a steroid monster. And a lot of the time, while they're pointing the finger, I'm sitting there going, but you are too.
Exactly.
Like,
or I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know, but
but
I'm suspicious of you because of this or that. Yeah. And I'm going, you're not clean. Yeah. Like, and you're angry about, and that goes back to me not being a hypocrite. In my business, there's so much cheating I don't even know if it's cheating. I don't know if it's unethical or whatever it is. But a lot of people create this facade of their social media profiles that aren't real, or they just hokey methods to get there. And because your social media is almost a commodity, especially in Hollywood. They look at your numbers and go, oh, you're getting this, we're going to put you in this movie. We're going to put you in this. So it's their means to get there, and however they get there, they get there. But then you've got everybody else that's not there going, fuck him, he bought those numbers and blah, blah, blah. He, what he did, he had this. And, I'm like, who am I to judge? Who am I? Like, people come to me all the time, we can get your number. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should pay for this or buy this, or, how can I do? And I really don't, and you can tell by my numbers that I don't have these crazy numbers, but I get angry sometimes, and then I'm like, hey, if I had that, if somebody came to me with that panacea, would I take? Yeah, I might do it too. So,
especially if it puts food on the table for your kids.
Exactly.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
And so I don't judge.
No. But the carryover to that for sport, let's talk about the sport for mixed modal. And I just try to use that terminology of because it's all sport, including IF3, grid, CrossFit, whatever. It's just mixtures of modalities we're trying to test for that. Is that if people are doing it for the wrong reasons, the new setup is actually going to squeeze all those people out that are doing it for the wrong reasons. So that's the beautiful thing around our sport and the essence of it. And I call it our sport because I've been involved in it so long to feel like I have part ownership of the direction of it, and I feel kind of responsible to make sure that it goes in a direction where the coaches and athletes actually have some respect around the sport. Is that the new formats, as bad as it may seem for others, it does actually make you show up. So you can be as popular as you want, but in the end, if you're not beating other people, then
Right.
it really doesn't matter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Whereas the way the system was set up before, you possibly could have some notoriety from going to the regionals that could give you 25,000 followers,
Mm-hmm.
plus 3 or 4 different sponsorships that could give you $3,000 a month.
Right. Right.
So, but that's not sustainable for sport long term.
Mm-hmm.
So the sport in the future is, I like it. It's not like golf, but it's akin to that. You have to win, and you have to actually perform in order to get popularity, in order to get, what's due to you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, because and I'm sure we spoke off the record about a couple of athletes before this podcast. There's probably 300 of them in North America that, with the flick of a switch, lost their entire, lives,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because there's no more regional.
Right.
Right? So you don't get anything from coming, 35th in the Open.
Nope.
And you can't win a sanctioned event. See what I'm saying? So the future went really dim really fast for a ton of people that were hoping for that next supplement deal.
Right.
But again, and I'm not hammering on them, but their intentions were incorrect because they were doing it for popularity and they weren't doing it to win.
Yeah. It's I'm able.
For those who are doing it to win, good for you.
I'm able to equate that to my business a lot too, because I see that same thing, and I forget what Buddha or something, what Buddhist book I read that said it's all about the intention and not the outcome. And if you have the right intent, and every time I find myself peeling off into the wrong intent, I find out that it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to dial back and just keep going, what is my intention? What is my intention, my long-term? And if I do, I keep succeeding. And I've been, like I said, I've been doing this 24 years. I've been a headliner for 21 years. And there's a lot of guys that explode and blow up and become super famous, and then they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gone. And it's because they did it for all the wrong reasons. Yeah. And I, from the very beginning, I just wanted to make people laugh.
Yeah.
I was like, I really want to make people laugh. And I want to walk out of the show and have a good time. The money's a byproduct.
Yeah.
Do I want a lot of money, and do I enjoy when I get rewarded? Absolutely. And sometimes I see people that are being rewarded more than me that I think have less talent, less skill, and I get frustrated, but I have to get back to it's a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah.
And I'm in this for the long term, and I'm just going to keep putting out my product that I believe is great. And it's so if you apply that to everything,
that's principle for everything,
and the sport of it, that's amazing. Now, that's a great way to kind of close this up, but I wanted to talk more about, do you compete at all anymore?
No.
Never at all?
No, not what you would consider, a closed weekend event or an online competition.
Never for fun, like in a...
Only in myself.
Oh, really?
In my own mind,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been much of a CrossFit. I've done them for like charity events or something like that. But so you wouldn't go back and do what are they doing at the Rogue? They're having like the not the Masters. What is it? They're bringing back
the invitation.
Yeah, they're having all the. You wouldn't do that?
Well, I'd have to get an invitation in order to do it.
and you're not getting that.
No, I'm not getting that invitation.
I don't know. Some doors close, some doors open again. I've noticed Armin's pretty close with CrossFit now. So if anybody wants to get involved with your program, I mean, explain a little before I go, because there are people out here listening that you're one of those guys everybody knows, but maybe not everybody knows about OPEX.
Yeah, that's true. They probably just know from CrossFit story and not about what we're up to today. But OPEX is an education company, and we have an education system that coaches on how they can apply fitness to the market. And so there's a system inside there called the OPEX way, and you can graduate from that and go off and have a very successful career as a coach. If you get really serious about it and you want to turn it into a business model, we now have gyms that are called OPEX gyms that license our education and run their fitness the way that we teach them how to do their fitness.
Okay.
And secondly, as an excerpt from that, we have under the umbrella, we coach through another company called Big Dogs. We coach online people who are really serious about fitness, where a large percentage of those people online around the world are coached by one of the Big Dog coaches
So
for
are these
serious
the
fitness.
competitor ones?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so when I walked in on you, you were having basically
That was our coaches meeting.
Yeah.
A couple times a week.
And so you've got, would we know some of these guys around the CrossFit world? Or are they?
Yeah. A number of them coach from their names or their lineup athletes that would have been there for masters, youth, professionals, or the amateurs turned professionals for CrossFit. But as I said previously, those are a very small audience, even amongst all audiences.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
We have, let's just say, out of 700s, plus up or down clients, there'd be 5 to 8 of them that have ever been like at games through a team or individuals, athletes. That's what as the games. So it's a very small audience. Right,
but it just seems to me like, again, when you're talking about intention, coming to you and talking to you about, you're somebody that's so knowledgeable and so immersed in this fitness world that your knowledge to share is a great place to go for if you want to learn. If it's not about so much of getting this certification that you can put a feather in your cap and say, I have this cert.
Yeah.
It's more about the education. It seems to me like if I don't have any kind of, I was a personal trainer for like 3 weeks at Equinox. But if I were to say, hey, I want to pursue this and spread this. I mean, I spread it sometimes on.
If you want to pursue it and spread the news.
Yeah, this is the place to come.
Yeah, if you want to spread the news as a professional coach.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
What I'm saying?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If I were to be a coach.
Like, I would say you probably wouldn't want to come to me. I mean, you'll get some information, from just fitness in general, fitness education. But in the end, we are coaching coaches.
Right.
So you need, if you want to come to us because you want to spread the good news, then I'm your guy.
Well, that.
If you're coming to learn about, the newest vision of what nutrition is and my views on that, sure, there might be a blog on it that we want to lead you into becoming a coach, but it's not.
I might not have said that right. My point was, if I was going to become a coach and wanted to be the best coach that I could be, I would want to come here to get this knowledge, not, and I'm not putting anyone else down, but a certification that I'm just going to use as on my resume.
Yes. Because no one's going to give a shit about what OPEX means on your resume.
Right. Well, it's kind of a.
But at the end, you're going to have principles of knowledge of business, how to build relationships, how to assess people, how to write a design, and how to give them awesome lifestyle and nutrition guidelines.
Yeah.
And I believe that's a professional coach, with the intention for any of your consumers of looking good naked, feeling more energized, or decreasing pain, i.e. to live long and prosper.
So how does somebody get involved other than just going to your website? I mean, do they have to come to Arizona, or do you teach this around?
No, it's fully accessible online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so they can do it all online?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, with tech today, it's
I know,
amazing.
We
still have lots of room to improve with language differentiation and the global effect of it for language is the biggest issue for transcribing and,
Yeah, I was talking to, like, John Gilson got his degree, his MBA from Harvard online. Yeah. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. So he goes, they teach the same exact courses that you go to Boston to get.
Yes.
You get it right online. So so they get it online. What goes on here at this facility other than you just being a beast all the time?
Yeah, no, we have one of our licensed models in this facility. It's called OPEX North Scottsdale. So it's one of those coaches that graduated and then wanted to take one of those licensed models and put it in place here. And then upstairs we have everyone that's surrounds me that's far more talented in all other areas that helps on the ship.
Yep.
With 30-something employees that make it run smoothly.
How do you keep your stress down?
Well, I like to keep certain levels of stress up, but I'm older, so I know how to pick my battles on what's important for me.
Yeah.
I give off. Like you said, I'm past the point of looking at, wow, birth was really cool. I'm definitely looking at death now as being something that's of interest.
Yeah.
And so, number one, I really don't give a shit about too much anymore, and I give off that energy, and it's felt within our facility. So So then people know when to ask questions or not ask questions, or give me the right or wrong, answers to those things, because they just know, how I operate that way. And I have my priorities pretty straight. My mantra, my daily, things to think about is teaching, learning, moving, and creating. And I use that as a daily mantra for myself to kind of stay on the straight and narrow, and to keep me from being a maniac, which I think is in essence in all of us a little small percentage that could get us into trouble. Ironically, to finish on what Everybody Lies discusses, and teaching, learning, moving, creating every day doesn't, it's actually energizing for me.
Right.
There may be stress inside it there for challenges, like trying to figure out the next evolution of training, etc. But it's all good.
That's great. It just seems like a big operation. I always think every time I start growing,
there's lots
I'm like,
behind
oh
it.
my God.
Yeah, there's lots behind it. Yeah, if you got a couple minutes before you go, I can show you.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Everyone.
We'll take some pictures and stuff, and I'll put them on our Facebook page.
Okay.
You can check it out. Like I said, you can see this on YouTube. If you're a Patreon member, until we leave Patreon, we will be. I have no problem telling them, that was bullshit.
Yeah.
You don't censor
Yeah.
people. I hate censorship. I was just, what did I see? Carlin said that, what did he say? He said something about, not censorship, is just something masked in fascism. And the political correctness is just, it's basically fascism just masked, and it's bullshit, the whole virtue signaling and everything. So I've just gotten sick of it, and sorry I ranted about that in the beginning, but I felt like it was an interesting conversation. And if you didn't,
conversation is required.
If you didn't get enough CrossFit, just go to your gym today. But I can't thank you enough for giving me the time. I know you're a very busy man, and it's, I was looking forward to this. I was here once before, and I was like, oh my, and I realized you were here, and I was like, I've got to go interview him, and it wasn't enough time. So thank you for fitting me in. I know you're super busy, and it's opex.com.
opexfit.com.
opexfit.com. Check them out. And
but OPEX.com may even get you there. I don't know. Maybe it'll bring you to an oil baron.
Probably
we're not OPEC. We're
probably
OPEX.
Will. So go to opexfit.com, and you have an Instagram, I assume, and
JFitsOPEX.
JFitsOPEX. And thanks for listening to the show. Any comments, anything, send them to our Facebook page. Our Instagram is Wodcast Podcast, and if you want to send an email, it's wadcastpodcast@yahoo.com. And thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting. And good night. Goodbye. Go fuck yourself. That was great. Wait, let me get this off.